History of Metallica. Metallica was formed by Lars Ulrich in 1981 when he put an ad in the newspaper for a guitarist. James Hetfield took him up on the offer. He called him up, went over to his house, and they started to jam. After playing for a little bit, they started to think of a name. Lars proposed Metallica for cars and vodka. Lars put another ad in the paper for a lead guitarist, and Dave Mustaine answered to that one. They recruited him after seeing his expensive guitar equipment. In 1982, they decided to record a song. They had Mustaine on lead guitar, Hetfield on vocals, rhythm guitar, and bass guitar, and then they had Lars Ulrich on drums. The song they recorded was called Hit the Lights. After Hit the Lights was put on a metal compilation album, they had their first show on March 14th, 1982 at Radio City in Anaheim, California, with their new bassist, Ron McGovney. James and Lars attended a show in the San Francisco Bay Area in the fall of 1982 and heard this insane guitar solo. They looked up on stage and there was no guitarist, only a bassist using a wah-wah pedal and heavy distortion. The two were blown away by his playing and they went to talk to him. His name was Cliff Burton. They immediately asked him to join Metallica, but he refused. After asking a few more times, he agreed, but only if the band moved to San Francisco. Metallica agreed. The band was actually excited to leave LA, mostly because all the other metal bands in that area were pansies, wore girl clothes, and were in it just for the girls. When they got to San Francisco, they recorded a demo called No Life Till Leather, which included their first song, Hit the Lights. The band flew out to New York to record. Once they got out there, they decided to get rid of Dave Mustaine due to his obsessive drinking and violent behavior. They woke him up one morning and handed him a bus ticket and said leave. Earlier that day, they called Kirk Hammett from Exodus, and Kirk flew in to audition. They knew that he was the right one when he nailed the solo to Seek and Destroy. After their demo became a hit, they were ready to record their first record. They talked to Johnny Z. Zazula. Zazula had heard the No Life Till Leather demo and was very impressed. He offered them a record deal. Within that whole process, Megaforce Records was created. Zazula is the one on the bottom left. Once Kirk was all settled, it was time to record. They went to the studio and started playing. The ending title of the album ended up being Kill 'Em All after the producer, Paul Curcio, said the first name wasn't that good. After the album was recorded successfully, they embarked on their first tour, the Kill 'Em All for One tour. The band Venom toured with them. After the tour, they decided to record another album, Ride the Lightning, in Copenhagen, Denmark. When the album was released, there was some covers that were misprinted green instead of blue. The director of Elektra Records and co-founder of Q Prime Management, Cliff Bernstein, went to a Metallica concert in 1984, and they were very impressed by what they saw. They talked to Metallica, and Metallica got a new record label. With their new record label, they decided to record another album in 1986, Master of Puppets. About the same time that Master of Puppets was released was about the same time that the fans started to realize that the members of Metallica were very heavy drinkers. Kirk Hammett said when he first came to Metallica, they were drinking vodka like water. That's when they got the nickname Alcoholica. During the Damage Inc. tour, James Hetfield was skateboarding and he fell and broke his wrist. He still sang but had John Marshall perform rhythm guitar duties. On September 27, 1986, the band was traveling in Sweden and Kirk Hammett and Cliff Burton were having a friendly dispute about sleeping arrangements. They decided to settle it by drawing cards. Cliff won with the ace of spades and said that he wanted Kirk's bunk. That same night, the bus hit some black ice, lost control, and started to roll. When it was all over, everyone was outside yelling and screaming, except for Cliff. Kirk looked over and saw his legs sticking out from under the bus. He had fallen out of the emergency window by the bunk, and the bus landed on him. There were thoughts of quitting in the band, but they decided not to let their fans down, so they started auditioning new bassists. They auditioned many, but decided that Jason Newsted was the one that they wanted. After they got Newsted situated, they decided to record another album. They recorded Garage Days Revisited. This would just consist of songs from other bands that they covered. In 1989, they released their first studio album after Cliff Burton's death. and Justice for All. A short time after it was released, Metallica made their first music video to the song One. After the album was released, Metallica went on a new tour. On stage, there was a huge statue like the one on the cover of the album. In 1990, the group went into the studio with a brand new producer, Bob Rock. While in the studio, they created the Black Album. This album hit #1 on the charts. After the Wherever I May Roam tour, what the band did next disappointed a lot of Metallica fans. They cut off all of their hair and recorded an album that was way different from their original sound. This album didn't do nearly as good as the previous ones, but there were a lot who thought it was a great album. A short time after that, they decided to release another album with the same sound, Reload. Many people believe this one was better than Load. A short time after that one, Metallica recorded an album that consisted of other songs by other bands that Metallica played. And a short time after that, they hooked up with the San Francisco Orchestra and played a live show. The show was recorded and released as a CD. The song I Disappear was supposed to be on the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, but it was getting airplay on the radio. They found out Napster was responsible and filed a lawsuit. Metallica won the suit. Tensions were building between the rest of the band and Newsted. Newsted decided to leave the band. Right after he left the band, James Hetfield went to rehab because of his obsessive drinking. Right after he got back, Metallica started recording Saint Anger and then they released it. It was way heavier than any of their other previous albums. Right before Saint Anger was released, they decided to audition bassists. The one that they really liked was Rob Trujillo, and they offered him $1 million to join the band. In 2008, Metallica released Death Magnetic. This album was considered to be their best album in 2 decades. It was also their first in 20 years with a new producer. This producer's name was Rick Rubin. After Death Magnetic was released, they went on the World Magnetic Tour. This tour involves venues in the United States and Europe, and it is still in progress. On April 4th, 2009, Metallica was given a great honor. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. Metallica, the 7th best-selling act in music history, has won 9 Grammys and many other awards and is inspiring many other bands and musicians in the world today.